Let's talk about Kevin Stefanski going to Mobile, Alabama, checking out the quarterbacks and other players at the Senior Bowl because a lot of people online are connecting dots that this indicates the Browns are going to go with a quarterback with the second overall draft pick. Tony Grossi tossing it out. He's not the only one saying Kevin Stefanski did attend Shrine Bowl practices. All this kind of happening at the same time. Will attend the Senior Bowl. That hasn't happened in the previous 5 years as a Browns coach. You know what also has not happened in the previous 5 years as a Browns head coach? They haven't had the second overall draft pick. They've only had two first-round draft picks under Kevin Stefanski, Jed Wills and Greg Newsome. So I'm not surprised that he has not gone to a lot of these extracurricular activities in the pre-draft process when over the last 3 years, they haven't started picking until round 3 in most cases. Let's just pause right here. Kevin Stefanski should attend everything. When you pick second overall, you leave no stone unturned. When you're picking 52nd overall, you don't really need to take a good hard look at the guys going top 20. There's no point in getting yourself worked up over what's Jaden Daniels going to look like at the Senior Bowl. You're not sniffing Jaden Daniels. So I'm not in the mindset of Kevin Stefanski's at the Senior Bowl. Ooh, he's watching the quarterbacks. Wow, I think that means they're going quarterback. No, I think it means he's doing his freaking job. He should do homework on every single quarterback. And if he comes back from this really liking a quarterback, then okay, we'll have that conversation at that point. But him just going to the Shrine Bowl practices, going to Senior Bowl practices, is not a major indicator of the Browns are going to go quarterback at number 2. We've never seen Kevin Stefanski here before. Kevin Stefanski has never had the second overall draft pick. In fact, let's actually back it up. 2020, I'm going to say with a little bit of positivity, there probably wasn't a lot of, or 2021 with COVID. I should have done my research on this, but yeah, I'm feeling like that stuff might not have existed earlier on in Stefanski's head coaching career. So he's never really had a great opportunity to attend a lot of this stuff. But now he's picking second overall, and he's going to do his homework, and we're going to just make major conclusions based off of that? No, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that Stefanski going to Mobile, Alabama locks in the Browns with a quarterback at the second overall draft pick. That to me is just way too big of a leap. I know some people want a quarterback at the second overall pick. I don't need to beat a dead horse. You guys know where I stand on this topic, and if you don't, I don't want them to do it. But we can just talk about the quarterbacks for a moment because on top of Stefanski going to Mobile, Alabama, the Browns Twitter themselves put out an interesting tweet, which we'll look at in a little bit here. But here are Kiper's quarterback rankings. It's just to give you a little bit of a frame of reference as to who to keep an eye on if you do want to see the Browns target a quarterback early in the draft. But taking a step away from that, I found this tweet and overall quote from Jim Nagy, who's been the Senior Bowl director for as long as I can remember, citing the historic nature of the 2024 quarterback class, where we had 6 guys go in the top 12. On 2025, he said, "It's certainly not last year. I don't know if any of these guys would be in the top 6 last year." And I don't disagree. If you picked up, let's say, Cam Ward, because I think most people view him as the number 1 quarterback in this class, and he was in last year's draft class, he's not going before Caleb Williams. He's not going before Jaden Daniels. He's not going before Drake May. I don't think he's going before Michael Penix. Maybe Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy. But to be honest, I still don't think he is. Right now, we're probably just thinking, well, if he's 1 this year, he couldn't be worse than 6 last year, right? I think he could be. So when you've got Jim Nagy, and this is his Super Bowl, it's an annual event, and he's the runner of it, and he's coming out, and he's not even just half-ass promoting the quarterbacks in the Senior Bowl, but just being brutally honest with you, that should say a lot about what people that don't have a horse in the race think about this quarterback class. A nice, non-biased view. So if you are in the mindset of taking a quarterback at second overall, I will green light it if you think Ward or Sanders is going to be a stud and is going to be a starter for a decade plus. Because I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you you're wrong, just like how you can't tell me I'm wrong. But if you want to take a quarterback and you don't care what quarterback it is, but you just want to take one, I implore you to at least look at the quarterbacks, right? Come up with your own opinion as to what their skill set is, their strength, their weaknesses, and then decide if you feel like, yeah, this is actually a good overall prospect. Not just, well, Browns need a quarterback. They pick second. We take quarterback. Don't have such linear thinking. Do a little bit of homework on this class. I'll turn it over to you because you're probably getting tired of hearing me rambling on right now. What do you want the pick at number 2 to be? Want to be a quarterback or just anyone else? Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, trade back. I don't care. Just any other option other than we take a quarterback at number 2. I'm in the F. I'm in the field. Give me any other option than forcing a quarterback at pick number 2. Now, another thing that's been making its rounds on Browns Twitter and just across the fan base in general is this tweet right here. It's from the Browns themselves. 10 players to watch at the 2025 Reese Senior Bowl, and Jalen Milroe is the photo. A lot of fans are drawing big conclusions from this, thinking, whoa, interesting choice of a photo, is it not? Does this mean the Browns are looking at a quarterback and specifically Jalen Milroe? Here are 4 of the 10 players that the team staff writer identified to watch for at the Senior Bowl. And surprise, surprise, it's got Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard, Jaxson, Dillon, Gabriel. There are 7 quarterbacks that are participating in the Senior Bowl. Shedeur Sanders is not. Cam Ward is not. So big whopping surprise here that the 4 most popular guys are included on this article, which is just the staff writer doing their job, trying to talk about things that are somewhat interesting when the offseason starts to get a little bit dry at this state. Now, looking closer at these 4 quarterbacks, Milroe definitely has a little bit more intrigue around him because of his connection to the Browns' new offensive coordinator, Tommy Reese. The 2 overlapped in 2023 when Reese was his play caller, the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban at Alabama. And looking at Milroe's career, a very successful career in a lot of ways. 1,500 yards on the ground, 78 total touchdowns, like a 2-year starter for the Crimson Tide, whatever it turned out to be. I personally am not a fan of Jalen Milroe, the prospect. And now we're starting to dip our toe into the water of this is not an easy subject for draft content creators, which I almost just threw up in my mouth saying out loud, to cover. Because this is a very fun process for these players. You only get drafted once, and it's not cool to just berate and bash on these prospects and say they suck. But I feel like if I just come up here and say everyone's good, everyone's great, I'm doing you a disservice because I'm not giving you my full, honest opinion as to who I'd like to see the Browns go out and target. Now, the draft is a crapshoot. So I'm not going to stand here and pretend that everything I say is going to be correct. There'll be things I get right. There'll be things I get wrong. But my opinion of Milroe, the prospect, is stay away from him. He had a lot of experience at Alabama, and the cons are things that concern me because they should have improved going into his final year. He does not read the field well. That's a fine con for a first-year starting quarterback in college football. Not for a guy who's in his senior season, who's struggling to pick up defensive blitzes, who's struggling to break down defensive alignments and whatnot, and know where to go with the football. He also holds onto the ball for an eternity. He's got great skill set, though, from a physical standpoint. He's fast, he's good, he's a dual-threat quarterback. He's got arm strength that he can make a lot of tough throws. But reading over these pros and cons, I'm starting to think it all sounds a little familiar. Does it not? Cannon of an arm, good mobility, can use his legs, holds onto the football for too long, though, takes a lot of sacks, doesn't read the defense super well lately. Is that ringing any bells? Maybe a different quarterback who wears number 4? Kind of sounds like you're signing up for Deshaun Watson again. I'm not going to stand here and say that we can't take any quarterback who reminds us of Watson, but one that aligns a lot with Deshaun Watson's profile? Yeah, maybe someone that Stefanski goes, not again. Oh, this quarterback holds onto the ball and takes a lot of sacks? Kind of just went through that whole process. But he's got a great strong arm. I've seen this before, and it doesn't work out like you think it does. There are a lot of reasons why I'm not a fan of Milroe the prospect, but I don't think that Tommy Reese overlapping for 1 year means he's going to bang on Andrew Barry's table and go, I know I'm a first-year OC, but I'm going to commandeer and make the quarterback selection that may make or break you as a GM. Doesn't seem like Barry is going to put his job security in first-year OC Tommy Reese's hands because he worked with Jalen Milroe at Alabama 2 years ago. Call me crazy. We're going to look at the other players that were mentioned in the Senior Bowl watch list. First, though, I got to give a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. With the Cavs being, fortunately, a little injury right now, plagued at the moment, but still one of the best teams in the NBA. If you want to go catch a Cavs game and you want to plan ahead a little bit, visit Game Time, because with Game Time Picks, you're going to get incredible value, right? The best bang for your buck, saving you guys as much money as possible. So do yourself a favor, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on, I know we didn't talk about the other quarterbacks too much, but we got plenty of time to do that. Running back Donovan Edwards out of Michigan was the next player on this watch list. I'll keep this one a little bit on the short and sweet side. No thanks. Not sorry. Edwards regressed, I'd say, this past season. He was supposed to take over from Blake Corum, and he did not. Look at his 2022 season. There was supposed to be a big kind of thunder and lightning with them in 2023, and Corum definitely held up his end of the bargain. Donovan Edwards being like the number one player on NCAA and not even being the number one running back on his own team was very strange. So, yeah, I'll pass on Edwards altogether. Before we check out the other 5 players mentioned to keep an eye on, make sure to subscribe to us here at the Cleveland Browns Report. We put out free daily content. All you have to do is click the subscribe button. Free of charge the entire time you're here, like all YouTube channels. That way you can stay locked in on the draft, free agency. Plus, we're closing in on 41,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, would do me a big favor. Go ahead, scroll down, click subscribe. 3 offensive linemen that were mentioned on this article. You got Oregon's offensive tackle, Josh Connerly, the Minnesota Golden Gophers left tackle, Ariante Ursray, and then the Mizzou right tackle, Armand Membo. So, who are these guys, and could they be picks for the Browns? Because I don't expect them to be the selection at number 2, but maybe later on, like in round number 2. Some background on these guys as we start to get more accurate measurements, which is a good and a bad thing. I think people far too often get too attached to the pre-draft process, the combine, the Senior Bowl, the weigh-ins, the interviews, that they forget these guys played 12 games not long ago, and we should look at those games as the biggest piece of the pie when making our evaluations. And when I went back and I started to watch some of the film on these offensive linemen, I'm not going to pretend that I watched every single snap that Membo took at Mizzou this year, but as I just start to build up a little bit more of a familiarity with these players here, all of them are good and bad things around them, but no doubt, I think second-round draft targets for the Browns. Unless they do some major trading back, this is not the play for Cleveland at that number 2 pick. These are, what if they fall out of round 1? Since the Browns have the first pick in round 2, there's always a notable name or two that slips out of round 1, and you want to do your homework on because maybe you get lucky and they fall into your lap. Of these 3 players, one that I keep a close eye on is Armand Membo. He is kind of the rising player at the moment. He went from being someone that you never really saw in first-round conversations early on to, wow, Daniel Jeremiah in his last mock draft had him going as early as pick number 11. He's got incredible strength. He's got really good quickness and overall athleticism to him as well. He was a 2-year starter at right tackle. He's also really young. He's going to turn 21 years old just before the draft. And we know Andrew Berry prefers younger prospects. So that's something that's going to be a big check in the box for AB. And I wouldn't be surprised if at pick 33, the Browns are thinking, we're going to try and reinforce our offensive line. They've made some additions to it in the draft the last few years. Zach Zinter in round 3, DeJuan Jones in round 4, but they have not made a first or second round investment at their offensive line since Jed Wills in 2020. So they are overdue for beefing up the guys up front, and Membo offers some versatility. I could see him playing guard or playing tackle. I would prefer the Browns to go out and just find a left tackle, since there's a little bit of fear of, can they make the transition, since Jed Wills did such a poor job of transitioning from right tackle to left tackle, and he's a right tackle, and I like what we saw from Conklin this year, but he might be just the best player available, and looking back, you might regret passing on the guy you have at the top of your big board. Now, I want to hear from you once more. Should the Browns go offensive line in round 1 or round 2? Just one of those 2 rounds. Give me a yes or give me a no in the comment section below. The last 2 players mentioned in this watch list are 2 defensive linemen. You got the edge rusher out of Marshall, Mike Green, and then Texas A&M's defensive end, Shamir Stewart. Let's get to know both guys, because once again, these are plays for round 2, but I don't think either one's going to be there in round 2. Maybe, though. It's a draft. Anything can happen. We'll start with Mike Green, though. 6'4", 248 pounds. A little bit on the smaller end. Like, Miles is, Superman, but he's like 275-ish. So just to give you a reference, we're talking about a 25-pound difference. But the reason why we're talking about him is the production he had in his lone season starting for Marshall. Led the country in sacks with 17, finished second in tackles for loss with 22.5, 3 forced fumbles, 84 tackles. Yes, the physical makeup may not scream, this is a stud, but this is a very productive player. And when I'm evaluating edge rushers, I'm looking for production. I don't need production from like wide receivers, because they might have a bad quarterback. They may not be in an offense that's designed around passing the football. But there is no scheme and there is no defense that is not designed around edge rushers sacking the quarterback. And more often than not in college football, it's one-on-one between yourself and the offensive tackle. Sometimes a defensive coordinator might move you around to a spot that's best for the team, but maybe not best for your draft outlook. That's a bit of a rarity. So if I'm not seeing production, I'm not interested, which then transitions us to Shamir Stewart. Physically, very impressive. And this is someone I could see Andrew Berry falling in love with. He's 6'6", 285 pounds, but he does not move like a 285-pound person does. He moves like a 250-pound person. And once more, Andrew Berry loves finding great physical specimens and gems in the draft. He loves finding track stars and then trying to bank on his coaching staff developing them into football players. Hasn't really worked, but sometimes it does, I suppose. Now, here's my concern. The production. I just gave this whole speech about it. There's none here. He was one of the biggest recruits coming out of high school for Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. 3 years, he never had more than 1.5 sacks in a season. I just can't get past that. There are plenty of, phenomenal athletes in every single draft class. Guys are going to test through the roof at the combine. 6'6", 285 pounds. It's a great piece of mold for Jim Schwartz to get his hands on and just start, or clay for him to start molding. I kind of butchered that. But 1.5 sacks, I'm not of the belief that he is going to wake up in the NFL and just figure out how to sack the quarterback. Figure out how to get the pressure. He may have all the tools, but so did Anthony Schwartz. We know how that worked. So pass on Stewart. Green, I'm interested in for sure. I think he's going to go round 1, so the fact that he could be there at pick 33, it'd be hard to pass on. I'm not going to say no because he played at Marshall. There are lots of good players who went to non-Power 5 schools and had very successful NFL careers. So that to me is not an immediate red flag. But it could be to Berry and the Browns because they are an analytically driven type of franchise, not a eye test franchise. And my sense is the analytics would say, didn't play at a big school, didn't play against good competition. Those sacks and productions are not going to carry over to the NFL. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Let's pick a card. Dillon, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Reed, which card do you want to go with?
Let's go Jack of Spades.
I'm going to go 5 of diamonds. Nope. Ace of diamonds. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see everyone tomorrow.